Hey guys, and welcome on in for today's video where I'd like to talk a bit about the current dynamic that's going on in the 2020 Democratic primary, where you have Biden, who currently leads the pack. He's been pretty resilient in the mid to upper 20 percentage point range. Elizabeth Warren actually caught Joe Biden a few weeks back, but since then has taken just a bit of a step back, still in second place. And then you have Sanders in third place, and it's this fascinating dynamic where you have Biden, obviously a more establishment centrist type figure, and then you have Bernie as well as Warren, who are the two most progressive people that are running, whereas Warren, more of a progressive reformer, while Sanders pegs himself as more of a progressive revolutionary. So there are differences, of course, between Warren and Sanders, but they have tried to position themselves on the left side of this Democratic primary field. And it's this situation where we have three candidates that are battling towards the top, and then all of the other candidates are in general in the mid to lower single digits. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, how is it possible that Warren or Sanders could catch up and perhaps pass Biden? Well, there's a number of ways that this could happen. First of all, just the fact that this whole primary process is, it can be a momentum-based thing where if you have success in those early states, it can propel you to have more success in the states after that. And what we're seeing with the polling out of Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada is definitely painting a picture where Warren and Sanders can have success early on, and perhaps that boosts them up in these national polls and maybe get more competitive with Joe Biden. Now, we saw earlier on in this process, you can see where Biden peaked right after he made his announcement. He was actually over 40%. Since then, he has gone down quite a bit, but he has more or less been relatively consistent in that mid to upper 20 percentage point range over the past couple of months. And it seems like he has pretty consistently solid support among the older voter age demographic, as well as very strong support among African American voters. So for Warren or Sanders to try to catch down Biden, it means that older voters are going to have to flock to somebody else, or African-American voters. Now, how is this possible? Now, we see the candidates that are in fourth and fifth place can possibly do that. So we have Pete Buttigieg, who has made a bit of a resurgence in recent weeks. As we can see, he's kind of been hovering around the 4 to 5 percentage point range for quite a bit of time, but he has stepped up after the past debate that we just had. Now he's up to around 7 to 8 percentage points. And what's fascinating about Buttigieg is the fact that early on, when he first got things going, let me just scroll down here so we can see these numbers a little bit better. So Buttigieg is this purple line, and he had this jump early on in the process where he was able to jump up there to around 8 or so percentage points. But since then, he backslid a bit and kind of hovered around that 5 percentage point mark for quite a bit of time. Now, early on, a lot of the gains that we were seeing from Buttigieg came from younger voters getting excited about a bit more of a progressive message that he was bringing out there. Now, since then, we've seen a different strategy from Buttigieg where he's definitely gone more to the right in terms of this Democratic primary. He's been taking a lot of that big corporate money and tried to position himself as more of a centrist, and we have seen him gain a couple of points recently, but he is starting to get more of his support from older voters. This could possibly take away from Biden. And then beyond that, Kamala Harris, she's really been struggling. It feels like her campaign is almost over at this point with how she's been continually fading after she had a really strong performance after the first debate where she jumped up significantly in the polls, but since then has backslid and hasn't been able to regain. But Kamala Harris, she does okay with African American voters. If she is somehow able to find her footing again and regain back in the polls, that's also a potential individual that could strip away support from Biden. So in terms of this race that we're seeing, the fourth and fifth place individuals, Buttigieg and Harris, if they're able to pull away older voters or African American voters, that could possibly bring Biden even closer to where we're seeing Warren and Sanders currently occupy this Democratic race. Now, just to show you this recent poll that we got out from Emerson out of the state of Arizona, and just to show you this argument that I'm making for Buttigieg, when we look at the numbers here, Pete Buttigieg, his support among voters that are over the age of 50 came in at 21%, while he was only getting 3% of the support from those under the age of 50. So if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter specifically who relies so heavily on that younger age demographic, you probably shouldn't mind Pete Buttigieg going and rising in the polls because he's probably not taking away from Sanders supporters. He's probably more than likely taking away from Biden support, and that can possibly make things a bit more interesting at the top of the field. So basically, we're at a situation where it feels like a three-horse race at the top between Biden, Warren, and Sanders. And if Warren and Sanders are going to try to catch Biden, where he's been pretty resilient, where his numbers have been over the past few months, where he hasn't continued to backslide, it feels like the chance that they could possibly propel in is if first they have success in those early primary states of Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, which is looking like a real possibility, but also if Buttigieg and Kamala Harris are able to strip away either older voters from Biden or African-American support that he does very well in and has been a big catalyst in him staying at the top of the pack. So I just wanted to talk today a little bit in this video about possible scenarios that we have as we go forward in terms of how is it possible for Warren or Sanders to try to make up the ground that they're currently behind Joe Biden with. And that's what I'm seeing in terms of the race at this point in time. So I appreciate you guys stopping on in. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for future videos.